Welcome, true believers, to Bad Wolf Comics. I'm your host, the Bad Wolf, and today we're going to take a look at the Star Trek Next Generation Doctor Who crossover by IDW. Before we get started, I'd like to ask everyone to please like and subscribe. It's the best way to support the channel and really helps us grow as a community. And at Organic Price Books, don't forget to use the code BADWOLF during checkout for $2 off your order. Let's get started. This is IDW Comics' Star Trek The Next Generation Doctor Who crossover. As you all are aware from my room tour video, I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. I've been watching since the 80s, and when I found out this book even existed, I had to have it. When two worlds collide, resistance is futile. Let's check it out. Alright, here's our cover, and I'll show you that real quick here. Got that little bit of spine damage, but it wasn't to the point that I couldn't read the book, and that was really my main goal for this one, was the fact that I couldn't even read this without paying over $200. So I picked this up for now. It's good enough that I was able to read the story. Alright, now my only major complaint with this book is I'm not a huge fan of the painted watercolor style art. It's just not something I've ever really been into. Honestly, if this wasn't a Doctor Who Star Trek crossover, I may not have even picked it up. But I'm a huge Doctor Who fan, as you all know, and I saw this and I had to have it, and especially for the price that I found it at, I just couldn't say no. Alright, for those unfamiliar with Doctor Who, the premise is the Doctor is an alien from Gallifrey. He has two hearts. He regenerates instead of dying. If something happens, like he gets shot, he'll regenerate, but when he regenerates, he becomes a whole new person with a whole new personality. He remembers all of his past lives, but he just becomes a whole new person entirely. We won't get into that too much more because they don't really do that in this book. But he travels around in his ship called the TARDIS, which stands for Time and Relative Dimension in Space. His ship is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And he travels with a couple companions. Basically what's going on is they travel around time and space, and they're usually trying to have fun, but they usually always end up right in the middle of some huge universal disaster that the Doctor has to save the day. Star Trek, most of you should be familiar with Star Trek. I shouldn't have to explain Star Trek. Even people that don't watch Star Trek know what Star Trek is. They know the premise. They get the idea. Here in this book, some of the crew are on the holodeck, as you can see, and the Doctor pops in behind them. But he's unaware that he's actually on a starship rather than actually in LA. Then here they find out they're on the holodeck because Riker didn't believe that they weren't holograms. Now they know. Gotta go meet the captain. But in this book, the Doctor has an enemy called the Cybermen, which is very, very similar to Star Trek's Borg. Granted, Doctor Who is older than Star Trek, so they were around first. They did it first. But in this particular book, the Cybermen and the Borg team up because they both pretty much have the same goal in mind. Cybermen want to upgrade the universe, whereas the Borg want to just assimilate everything. So it's basically the same thing. And it looks like they've formed an alliance here. This is the Cyber Controller, which would be akin to, say, the Borg's Queen. It looks like he's got some Borg upgrades, so he's kind of a mesh of the two. And they plan to take out the universe together as a team-up. So once Picard and the Doctor have all their introductions and go through all that, and they talk about who the Doctor is and what he's here for, they explain themselves a little bit, and so Data looks in the records to find any other known information about the Cybermen, and they find some back on the original Enterprise. And then we go into this flashback here, which takes place with the original crew. But it also takes place with a past incarnation of the Doctor. Now in the 70s, Tom Baker played the Doctor, and he was this trench coat, scarf-wearing, strange man. But he was one of the best Doctors ever. He actually played the Doctor longer than anyone else, 7 to 8 years. Most actors usually only play for 3 to 4 years and they move on. He did it for 7. But this is the Doctor that I grew up with. I was watching reruns in the 80s. But this was my first Doctor. He's the one that I grew up with. and really what got me into the show as a kid. So in 2005, when the show came back, I was hooked already. They didn't have to sell me on it. But this is his flashback adventure as the fourth Doctor, the fourth incarnation. They number the Doctors because the first Doctor, then he dies, he regenerates. The second Doctor dies, regenerates. Third Doctor, and so on. So this is the fourth Doctor. And he has a whole adventure with Kirk and Spock, with the original Cybermen from back in the 70s or 80s. It cracks me up. It's the same kind of technology, so it really kind of made sense that they went back to the original crew. And here, reading this panel, I just keep thinking, and Kirk wins as usual. The only thing missing here is Kirk didn't get to procreate with an alien. Moving on. After that whole thing closed out, they end the flashback, and they come back to the present, or, well, our future, but their present into what's the current story. And then they just continue here. Just a little chat with Guinan. Try and separate these here, and try not to go through the whole thing. I'm going to try not to spoil too much, but at the same time, this book is so rare, most people don't even know it exists. Some people don't even care because they're not into either the Star Trek or the Doctor Who, but any Doctor Who fan is going to love this. The fact that they crossed over with Star Trek is unbelievable. I didn't even believe it existed when I was first told about it. So I really had to find the book, discover it, and it was like, oh my gosh, it really does exist. But it was super expensive, so I just had to wait until it came down to a reasonable price. And here we have, they're discovering some destroyed Borg ships. Wonder what's going on there. Dun dun dun. Oh no, their alliance didn't work out after all. The Cybermen betrayed them. Who would have thought? So here we have the Borg trying to make a deal with Picard. Picard's not having it. You know, he used to be Locutus. He's like, we're not making deals with the Borg. That's just not happening. So they go through a lot of dialogues. As you all are aware, Star Trek and Doctor Who are very dialogue-heavy shows. This is actually a flashback of them explaining Picard's experience becoming Locutus of Borg, trying to tell the Doctor what's going on, and why he won't even consider an alliance with the Borg. I don't blame him. Do you? And then Guinan has her little chat. There's Amy. Amy is one of the Doctor's companions. Rolls around with him in time and space with her husband, Rory. That's a whole new video and a whole nother set of books. We'll get to that one day if people actually want to read more about Doctor Who, or if people actually want me to do more Doctor Who videos, let me know down in the comments, and I will definitely do those. I'm just not sure how our community feels about Doctor Who, so I'm just going to do this one book, and if it does well, I might do more. And this, oh yeah, I forgot about this. This right here is where the Doctor is trying to explain to Picard the ramifications of not accepting the deal with the Borg and letting the Cybermen just take over. Much like the Borg, I mean, they pretty much assimilate every culture that they're exposed to and destroy the universe. This is Picard's first time inside the TARDIS, where, as you can see, on the outside it's just a little box, but on the inside it's a huge room with infinite possibilities. And if you ever watch the show, there's been a few shows where they actually explain that there's an infinite possibilities in this place. Like, there's a library, a pool, it goes on for miles inside that thing. But they just disappear and reappear in the location that they need to go to and in the timeline that they need to visit. And here the Doctor is going through and showing Picard an alternate reality of what will happen if the Cybermen are allowed to run unchecked, with each civilization falling one by one to the Cybermen, until there's nothing left. Let's keep going here. And here they finally decide to meet the Borg and have a discussion about it, considering taking up their offer. Yeah, I'm just not I mean, I love the likeness. They got the likeness for every character down, but I'm just not a fan of the paint. But some folks are, so to each their own. The Doctor's showing up on a Borg cube. I really enjoyed the story of this book, though. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of the art, but the story was really good. Really intrigued by the whole Star Trek Doctor Who crossover. Like I said, the first time I heard about it, I was like, that's not real. And bam, here it is. Holy crap. Back in the holodeck. Nope. Still on a Borg ship here. There's some cyber ships. The only thing that really bugged me about the story of this book is the Doctor has a serious aversion to guns of any kind, which would include phasers. And he didn't really say anything. I mean, yeah, it's the captain. They're going to use phasers whether the Doctor likes it or not. I get that, but he didn't really mention it even, whereas usually if someone pulls out a gun or something, he definitely tries to stop them or talk them out of using a gun and finding an alternative way to deal with whatever situation comes up. Here we go. They're meeting the cyber controller. Basically Borg cyber controller. We're all finished. Get back in the TARDIS. Take off. Boom. Data fighting off the Borg with Worf. Here it ends, and we have an art gallery here. I really like the Star Trek Doctor Who crossovers here on the covers. They're really well done. Nicely done. Love the pictures. I wish I could find some of these. I might actually blow them up and make canvases, but let's be honest, I'm really out of room on the walls. But Star Trek Doctor Who crossover homage cover. Picard's face. It's great. He's staring out into space. But two of the best sci-fi franchises in history crossing over in a book was just gold for me, man. It's really a dream come true. Like I said, if you do want to see more Doctor Who content in the future, just let me know down in the comments below. I have plenty of other books and stories that I could go through. I just don't plan to heavily focus on that because it's not as popular. So for the moment, this will probably be the extent of our Doctor Who content unless I get a request for more. But stick around, true believers. Bad Wolf Comics has more to come. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.